Mr. Green for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if I may, I'd like to associate myself with every word that you spoke in your opening statement. I totally concur with you. Let me start with this. My assumption is that all of our witnesses believe that there is something called white privilege. If I am incorrect, I would like for the witness who differs with me to say so. Is my assumption correct that all of our witnesses are associated, can have some understanding of what white privilege is? Hearing none, I assume that they do. I'd like to know, what role do you think white privilege played in the response that the officers had to the persons who marched on the Capitol, who stormed the Capitol, who, by many standards, participated in what was called an insurrection? So let me just start quickly and ask, we'll start with the Director of Homeland Security. Rodriguez, if you would, please.
Thank you, Congressman Green. And I know that there are a variety of investigations that are ongoing and commissioned by the Hill, and we will certainly find out the role that I think far right and white supremacy played in the insurrection. The FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office.
If I may just share just a thought with you, not white supremacy, white privilege. White privilege. What role did it play in the reception that those persons who marched on the Capitol received?
Well, Congressman, as I said, I think that that's going to come out a lot in the investigations that are ongoing as we speak.
All right. Is there anyone who has an opinion as to what role white privilege played? Yes, ma'am.
What I might offer, Mr. Congressman, is, as a civil rights organization that tracks these issues, we definitely have seen law enforcement not take quite as seriously when a bunch of young people get together with Confederate flags. They treat them very differently than a bunch of young men, boys or young men of color, when they get together. But I will just say that the failure of law enforcement to create a national security special event and adequately protect the Capitol on January the 6th contributed to what was nothing short of a catastrophe. There's no excuse for it. So I think white privilege may have played a role, but it was incompetence at the top, or maybe even a political decision that created the ultimate consequence that we're all dealing with today.
All right, and I'll yield to the lady next, please.
I echo what Mr. Greenblatt just said. It does appear that the nature of the threat, perhaps it's unwitting, perhaps it's, I wrote in my testimony that some of the challenge that we've had with this threat is that it wasn't taken seriously. It's really hard to understand fully everybody's motives behind that. I think one of the problems was the persistent use of the term lone wolf when you describe various attackers over the last 10 years associated with domestic extremism, and it kind of leaves you with this impression that they're kind of alone in their motivations, when in fact they are part of a massive movement. So we way underestimated this, what I believe to be the number of people in the country that are involved in the movement. They're not all violent, but in underestimating I think that led to some of the bad judgment calls. But yes, I do think that white privilege is a part of this.
Let me apologize for interrupting, but I want to ask you a follow-up question. If the persons who marched on the Capitol, and I'm being kind by saying marched in my opinion, were of color and had hockey sticks and nooses and swastikas, I'm told there may have been some, but let's say shirts with Auschwitz on them, would the reception have been the same? This is your best guess. Would it have been the same?
No. I think the evidence of even recent events like this last summer have showed that we treat threats differently based on the color of the protester skin, and that needs to change.
Which leads me to my final question. Do we need some sort of means by which we can educate? I would prefer not to use the term train, but educate the constabulary, those who are among the police and constables and sheriffs, all of these various departments, about something that we call an unconscious bias. Do we need to train and teach people about this? Ma'am?
Yes.
Gentleman, time
Thank
from
you, Mr. Chair.
Texas has expired.